Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I Engineer Shad Muhammad, lecturer at Department of Civil Engineering, ComSets University, Islamabad, Sahiwal campus. Welcome you all to this another interesting topic regarding mass concrete in structures, and this will be our lecture number 29 of the subject Civil Engineering Construction and Graphics. In our previous lecture, lecture number 28 was concerning defects and damage in building construction, and a lot of defects and damages were studied and factor affecting them, and concrete defects and damage, concrete damage due to reinforcement corrosion, and typical time of appearance of the defect, and we studied recognizing defects and probable causes, defects due to construction and load induced defects, defect related to environmental factors and material properties, other defects like alkali silica reaction and delayed antragite formation, fire, and masonry and rendering defects. We just mentioned them, and that was your homework to dig them deeper and to study them thoroughly. Alright, in today's lecture, that is 29th, lecture number 29, and our course content is going to finish almost, and in today's lecture will be regarding mass concreting and what is mass concreting, where mass concreting can be found, the basics of mass concrete specifications, and thermal control measures, how you can thermally control, and optimal concrete mix design, so how you can efficient mix design for the mass concreting, and how you are going to insulate the mass concrete, concrete cooling before placement and concrete cooling after placement, few of the mechanism to control heat of the mass concrete, predicting concrete temperatures, and further is monitoring concrete temperatures, and subdivision of the monitoring concrete temperature includes sensor placement. So we are where you can place the sensor within your structure or structural member. So what is mass concrete? The American Concrete Institute, the ACI, the leading organization in concreting, defines mass concrete as any volume of concrete with dimensions large enough to require that measures to be taken to cope with generation of heat from hydration of the cement and attendant volume changes to minimize cracking. So they are stating that it is any volume of concrete. They have not specified any specific volume, and stating that any volume should have such specification that dimension should be large enough that it should require some mechanism to cope up with the generation of the heat. As you know that hydration reactions are exothermic reactions, and heat is liberated, and so there can be volumetric changes within your member, and with the due to volumetric changes there can be cracking. So if you require some mechanism to develop to prevent volumetric changes or minimize cracking, then if you are taking those measures, then you are in the area of mass concreting. While the definition is somewhat vague, it's vague for engineers because it is not having some quantifying measures. It is qualitative definition. It is intentionally vague because the concrete mix design, the dimensions, and the type of placement and the curing methods all affect whether or not cracking will occur. So why it is vague? It states that because concrete mix design can change, and for the same thickness, if there is an efficient concrete mix design, then you can prevent or minimize cracking, and dimensions. So even in reasonably thinner members, mass concreting or thermal effects can be visible, or reasonably thick dimensions, mass concreting, that defects cannot be visible. The type of placement and the curing methods, if you are using efficient curing or replacement method is efficient, then all its affect whether the cracking will occur or not. So you cannot, they have intentionally not stated any quantifying measure or any quantifying volume or dimension of concreting which will be categorized as mass concreting. To put a thickness to the mass concrete definition, we consider mass concreting to be any placement of normal structural concrete that has a minimum dimension equal to or greater than 3 feet. It states that, just to simplify our definition, any placement of the normal concrete which is thicker than 3 feet, then that will be minimum dimension is equal to 3 feet. If one is 3 feet and another dimension is 6 feet and another dimension is 2 feet, then that is not mass concreting. The minimum dimension of the cube 3D member should be at least 3 feet. Then that will be categorized as mass concrete. Similar considerations should be given to other concrete placements that do not meet this definition, but certain type 3 cement accelerating admixtures and cementitious materials in excess of 600 pound per cubic yard of concrete. So if your definition they are not meeting 3 feet criteria, then if you are using type 3 cement accelerating admixtures or other cementitious material and that is exceeding 600 pound per cubic yard of concrete, cementitious material is in excess of 600 cubic yard of concrete, then that will be categorized as mass concrete. Mass concreting has been historically associated with large structures such as dams, bridge piers and other volume placements. So mostly these mass concreting are used in heavy construction and in heavy raft foundation where soil is quite weak and you cannot provide pile, and in dams and bridge piers are common for mass concreting. However, due to increasing common use of fast track construction practices and high performance concretes with high cementitious contents, mass concreting issues are being experienced in typical bridges and building placements. So due to fast track construction practices and high performance cement usage and concrete and cementitious content is increasing day by day, and we want faster works in lesser amount of time. So mass concreting issue is being seen in typical bridges and building placements. Where mass concrete can be found in transit systems, in transportation areas, in industrial facilities, in building structures. So in transportation, in bridges, abutments, beams, girders, columns, footings, column caps, all are mostly mass concrete. Industrial facilities include tanks and tank foundation, blast and fire insulation walls, they are quite thicker, shielding almost and machine foundations. So these can be even your nuclear power projects walls, and building structures include shear walls can be thicker enough, and elevator cores, foundations, mat slabs, beams, columns, transfer girders and slabs. So multiple members and multiple structures are constructed with the help of mass concreting, and they are increasing day by day. Mass concreting phenomena is increasing day by day. That is a much considerable fact. The basics of mass concreting, what is mass concreting, and what is the mechanism behind mass concreting, how it is advantageous and how it is harmful. So all concrete generates heat as it cures. So you know that heat of hydration and cement generate, and bonding cementitious components of the concrete generate heat. The heat is caused by hydration of cementitious material. So hydration of cementitious material is the main responsible for creation of heat, which is the chemical reaction that provides strength to the concrete. So this is the chemical reaction, and then the in the result of this chemical reaction, heat is liberated, and it provides and generates strength to the concrete. Like strength development, the majority of heat generation occurs in the first few days of placement. So first few days are very critical regarding the heat generation. For thin sections such as pavements, heat energy escapes almost as quickly as it is generated. If the member is thin, like pavement slabs and foundations, horizontal and thin foundations, then you can see that heat is generated and escape generated, and it's escape easily and early. For thicker section, specifically mass concrete, the heat cannot escape as quickly as it is generated. So this is the problem. In thicker section, heat is not generated. Heat transfer is quite slow. The heat is trapped and increases the temperature of the concrete. So as the concrete temperature increases, more heat is generated, which further raises the concrete temperature, becoming a vicious cycle. So if temperature keep on increasing, so heat keep on increasing, and further it's increases the concrete temperature, and this creates a cycle. Eventually the concrete begins to cool. Yeah, at the end it has to cool because there is a finite amount of heat in the cementitious material. So when all the heat is liberated, then concrete will get cool. That is essential, and that is ultimate. The total amount of the heat energy depends upon the quantity and type of cementitious material. So this is important, that cementitious material is important, the type of the cementitious material used and the quantity in which cementitious material is used in your mass concreting. The varying rate of heat generation and dissipation causes the interior of the concrete placement to get hotter than its surface. So there is a proper gradient developed during heat liberation, that there is maximum heat in the core, and externally it is cooled. So there is a proper heat gradient. In other words, a temperature difference develops between the interior and the surface. This generates thermal stresses in concrete because the interior expands relative to the surface. So due to this thermal gradient, thermal stresses are generated. So cracking immediately occurs when the tensile stresses exceed the tensile strength of the concrete. So your concrete is fresh, and maybe it is in hardening area phases, so concrete can crack because there is excessive amount of tensile stresses developed due to temperature gradient, and due to thermal stresses and temperature gradient. So if tensile stresses exceed tensile strength of the concrete, already tensile strength of the concrete is quite weak, less, and so if tensile stresses increases or bypasses the tensile strength of the concrete, then it will crack. This cracking is referred as thermal cracking. This is essential, that this type of cracking due to thermal stresses is called thermal cracking. In most cases, thermal cracking is durability issue. So it is long-term issue and durability issue because it provides easy paths for air and water to reach the reinforcing steel and begin corrosion. So ultimately it is a durability issue, not a short-term basis issue. Means it provides a path, a permeability path, or percolation path, or you can say that seepage path through which water or moisture will penetrate and inside the concrete member, and it will create harm to your reinforcing steel, and your reinforcing steel might become to corrode. In some cases where thermal stresses are significant, the cracking may affect the structural capacity of the concrete. So ultimately, if your reinforcement is corroded, then it will directly affect your structural load bearing capacity. Thermal cracking takes many forms. It can be shown, it can be seen in many shapes and forms. On large foundation placement, it may appear random map cracking. So if your placement is a large foundation placement, so it will be some maps, type of random maps, type of zigzag type of pattern will be developed on your surface of the concreting, and that will be due to thermal liberation or thermal stresses. On walls, it may appear in a series of vertical cracks that are widest near the base. So if you are there is a thick mass concrete wall, so there will be vertical cracks at the base of the wall where it is fixed with the foundation or floor. On beams, it may appear uniformly spaced cracks perpendicular to longest dimension of the beam. So longitudinally, it will be perpendicular to longitudinal dimension, and transfers to the longitudinal dimension, and they will be almost uniformly spaced. Thermal cracking is one of the two primary concerns of mass concreting placement. So thermal stressing cracking is one phenomena which is very important in mass concreting. The other concern results from the concrete getting too hot. So if concrete is getting too hot, then that is also another phenomena, that thermal cracking is one phenomena, and concrete getting too hot is another phenomena. High temperature change the cement hydration reaction. So this is a problem, that why concrete getting too hot is dangerous. It changes the chemical reaction. Typical hydration reaction is changed, and at temperatures above 160 degree Fahrenheit, unstable hydration products develop in some concretes. So this is very important, that due to a very high temperature, there is change in hydration reaction, and some unstable hydration products are developed, and this is referred to as delayed integrite formation. So we have discussed that this is also a defect in concrete, that delayed integrite formation. Although concrete has hardened with the presence of cementitious components and presence of moisture, delayed integrite can be formed very in passive mode, and it can disrupt your concreting. In concrete where DEF occurs, the unstable hydration products can eventually begin to expand within the concrete. So unstable hydration products can expand. So this long-term effect that may not occur for months or years after the time of construction. In its worst form, DEF can cause significant cracking. So this is important, that this is a long-term effect, and it may not occur in months and year, and it is a significant cracking. To prevent delayed integrite formation, a rule of thumb is to keep concrete temperature less than 160 degree Fahrenheit. So this is the only thumb rule, that if your concrete is less than ultimate temperature is less than 160 degree Fahrenheit, then you can prevent delayed integrite formation. While the above discussion provides a very simple overview of DEF, the good news is that many concrete placements are relatively immune to the effects of DEF. So this is very interesting, that it is not so frequent and common phenomena. Some placements include those isolated from water. So such mass concreting which are isolated from water, that is groundwater, rain and pounding water, is prevented, and some that contain cementitious material with certain resistant chemistry. So if your cementitious material is having some resistant chemistry, such as high proportion of fly ash or slag cement is used, then you can see that delayed integrite formation can be prevented. One thing is that if you are controlling temperature and keeping them 160 degree Fahrenheit, below 160 degree Fahrenheit. Second is this, that if your structures are isolated from water, or having some your cementitious components are having some resistant chemistry, then you can prevent delayed integrite formation. Testing can be used to determine if concrete is susceptible to delayed integrite formation. In labs, you can test that which type of mix design you are using, and will there be some delayed integrite formation with the usage or not. Unfortunately, the concrete mix design and cementitious material sources are rarely known until the construction. So this is the biggest dilemma regarding testing, that you are unaware, being a concrete mix designer or tester, you are unable and unaware that what will be the concrete mix design, and what type of cementitious material and aggregates, and what will be the source of those aggregates and cementitious material, as in mass concreting a lot of cement is used, and so you rarely know it at the planning phase. So DEF can be shown to not be a concern. High temperatures are justifiable. However, temperatures greater than 185 can reduce the structural property, strength and modulus of elasticity. So if DEF is not of concern because you have used your structure is isolated from water, or cementitious components are resistant to chemistry, then DEF is not of concern. So high temperature are justifiable then, and because DEF will be prevented, and if you go greater than 185 degrees centigrade, then that there is a reduction, seen reduction in structural properties regarding strength and modulus of elasticity. So mass concrete specification includes the two main concerns with mass concrete placement are maximum temperature and maximum temperature difference. These are the most essential in mass concreting. You have to control them: maximum temperature and maximum gradient. That gradient should be quite less. The difference in temperature should be quite less. And the specification typically limits the maximum temperature to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Your maximum degree which can be achieved during mass concreting is 160 degrees Fahrenheit, and it should not exceed 160 degree Fahrenheit, and maximum temperature difference to 36 degree Fahrenheit. Specification also typically require calculation of thermal control plan be developed to show that these limits will not be exceeded. So you have to show thermal control plan, proper thermal control plan developed to prevent increase in temperature, ultimate increase in the temperature, and the difference of increase in temperature should be in control. So mass concrete specification also define the length of time these limits will be enforced. So they also specify that the length of time during which these limits are going to be enforced. Place a limit on the temperature at the time of placement or specify the concrete mix design. So these additional requirements are often unnecessary and cause more problems than they solve. So these are quite means the greater the constraints, the more complex the phenomena, and they may create or aggravates the solution condition. In the case of time limit, this specification can result in thermal cracking if the time period is not long enough. So if your time period is quite limited, then it can result in thermal cracking, because thermal cracking is quite delayed. It can occur in a few days to few weeks. Specifying an initially delivery temperature limit. If someone is specifying an initial delivery temperature limit, may not be practical. So that cannot be practical in hot weather regions. So and that will be costing a lot of cost during hot weather, and may cause unnecessary expensive pre-cooling of the concrete. So that will require a quite expensive pre-cooling mechanism. So some prescriptive mix design specification result in concrete that is not workable or requires the use of materials that are not routinely produced, such as type 4 cement or 6-inch aggregate. So there are some prescriptive to mix design from the consultancies that you should use this specific cementitious material, or you should use some specific size of aggregate which are commonly not available at the places of mass concreting. So that is quite difficult to find. So length of time is a problem. Initial temperature limit or delivery of the ingredients and mix is also a problem, and prescriptive mix design is also a problem. Okay, example of severe thermal cracking on the top surface of the column foundation. You can see this is a column foundation, and you can see that they are having some uniform thermal cracks. A concrete core removed from the column foundation shows the extent of thermal cracking. So it might seem quite a smaller crack, but if you are extracting a core out of this concrete, then you can see that this crack has gone throughout the concrete. This is your girder, and this is your pier, and you can see that thermal cracking has been developed, vertical cracks. Actually, the often specified temperature difference limit of 36 degree is based on outdated literature. So if some codes are specifying 36 degree Fahrenheit, that is also based on some outdated literature, and it has not been updated, and this is of no practical use. Today concretes are much different. and most placements contain reinforcing steel. So that is was when the thing was PCC, plain cement concrete. Now they are RCC and quite heavily reinforced. While specifying a 36 degree for Fahrenheit temperature difference limit is simple and common, it is only rule of thumb and may not prevent thermal cracking. So it is rule of thumb and it may not prevent thermal cracking, and just controlling the ultimate temperature difference to 36 degrees centigrade sometimes cannot prevent thermal cracking at all. Some concretes are more tolerant to thermal cracking because they have high tensile strength, and if you are using fibers or some other ingredients, because there is heavy research going on in fracture mechanics, and some tensile strength, efficient performance of concrete in area of tensile strength are also available now and contain aggregates with a low coefficient of thermal expansion. So some aggregates are also developed and which are having low thermal expansion. So in such cases, high temperature difference limits may be justifiable. So this 36 degree Fahrenheit, so there are exceptions. So 36 degree Fahrenheit will not be a rule. Some have suggested that 45 degree Fahrenheit is an appropriate temperature difference limit for concrete with granite aggregates, because they have low thermal expansion, coefficient of thermal expansion. So they are stating that 45 degree Fahrenheit temperature difference is applicable and acceptable, and 56 degree Fahrenheit for concrete with limestone aggregate. So if your aggregate is a major component of the concrete, so if your aggregate is limestone aggregate, then 56 degree Fahrenheit difference in temperature can be acceptable, and that can prevent thermal expansion. While it may be true, thermal modeling is often required to show that high temperature difference limits will control the thermal cracking. So thermal modeling need to be developed, that if there is an increase in thermal temperature, so there will be control in thermal cracking. These analysis typically utilizes thermal modeling to define temperature difference limits so that thermal stresses do not exceed the tensile strength of the concrete and thermal cracking is prevented. So there is tensile strength of the concrete, and due to thermal, with the help of thermal modeling, and input is thermal temperature, and if the temperature difference is in control, then there will be limit to thermal stresses and tensile strength, and you can measure them and monitor them. Similar analysis may justify a higher initial temperature at placement. These analyses are often used where the potential construction saving greatly outweigh the cost of the analysis. So if your construction practices, if by conducting analysis that you can save potential construction saving, then that is quite efficient. Okay, thermal control measures, how you are going to thermal control. Many potential solutions exist to minimize efforts needed to control temperature and temperature difference in mass concreting. There are many solutions to control maximum temperature and temperature difference. These solutions are often referred as thermal controls. So such solutions are referred as thermal controls, and each thermal control has associated cost and benefit. Thermal controls used currently include optimal concrete mix design. So your mix design should be optimum, and insulation. You should insulate the member of the mass concrete cooling before placement, and concrete cooling after placement, and use of smaller placements. So these are the thermal controls commonly used nowadays. So this is modeling, thermal modeling. Model temperature in 10-foot thick slab with 600 pounds per cubic yard of cementitious material, 65% type 2 cement and 35% fly ash class F. This is the temperature, initial concrete temperature, and you can see the duration in days. So within 1 day or 2 days there was a maximum concrete temperature, and temperature of the interior. Interior is hot, and this is temperature near the concrete surface. So surface is cooled. So what is the difference between these? This is the temperature difference within the concrete between the surface and interior. If you subtract this from this, you will get this curve, and you can see that your maximum temperature should be within the range. So this is the thermal modeling, and you can see that with the passage of time and with the every passing day, the temperature has reducing and the difference is also reducing. Optimal concrete mix design. Optimal concrete mix design is easiest way to minimize thermal control costs. So this is the easiest way and the most fundamental way in which you can control thermal cracking. The following should be considered when working with your ready mix producer and reviewing a concrete mix design for a mass concrete placement. So if mostly in mass concreting, your concrete is ready mix produced, and you should discuss that with mass concrete designer. Use a low heat cement. You should be using low heat cement. Cementitious components are very necessary regarding control of thermal cracking. Type 2 cement, not type 1 -2, generally has low heat of hydration. They are known as low heat cement, and many cement manufacturers do not provide heat of hydration data in their normal documentation. A 7-day value of 7 calorie per gram or less is desirable. So if you are not having some cement manufacturer data regarding heat of hydration, then 7-day value is desirable. So this is regarding you can use low heat cement. The concrete should contain, second option is this, that the concrete should contain class F fly ash or slag cement. Fly ash of class F category can be used, and slag cement can also be used as partial replacement. Class F fly ash is typically used to replace 25 to 40% of the cement. So class F fly ash can be used to replace 25 to 40% of the cement because its heat of hydration is about half that of cement. So you have to replace the cement with 25 to 40% of the class F fly ash, and its heat of hydration is half of the cement. Class C fly ash may also be used if it has similar low heat of hydration characteristics. So you should compare that whether class F fly ash will be better or class C fly ash will be better. And slag cement is often used to replace 50 to 75% of the cement. This can also be, slag cement can also be used, and the partial replacement is quite high, and its heat of hydration is typically 70 to 90% of the cement. So heat of hydration is quite the difference of heat of hydration between slag cement and typical cement is not quite so reasonable as compared to class F fly ash. That is 50% and this is 70 to 90%. Both fly ash and slag cement decreases the early age strength of the concrete. So early age strength is quite reduced, but can greatly increase the long-term strengths. So we are interested mostly in long-term strengths, but if your structure is being used at early ages, then that will decrease the early age strength of the concrete. Durability may be concerned in freeze, thaw or chloride laden environment when high replacement percentages are used. So you should be of concern that the durability during freeze and thaw cycles and chloride laden environment are mostly considered when they are used in high replacement. And testing should be performed to verify strength and durability. So these are the two phenomena that you have to consider, the strength and durability when you are using such additives. Third option regarding the optimal mix design to control thermal cracking is the water to cementitious materials ratio. Water cementitious materials ratio, water cement ratio or cementitious material, and mostly there are in mix mass concreting cementitious materials are used, not only cement material. So water cement ratio is not an appropriate terminology. Water to cementitious material ratio of the concrete should be as low as reasonable. So that should be as low as reasonable. This increases the efficiency of cementitious material, increases the strength to heat ratio. So if you are using a lower water to cementitious material ratio, then that will increase the heat to strength to heat ratio and decreases the likelihood of bleeding and segregation. So that will prevent bleeding and segregation. The minimum practical water to cementitious material ratio is of the order 0.35 to 0.40. So this should be your range, that your water to cementitious material ratio should be within this range. Achieving a workable mix at this low water cement requires the use of admixtures. So this is quite difficult for mass concreting. For the placement, and then you can use admixtures in parallel to the cementitious materials. And testing is recommended to ensure placeable concrete. So testing is essential. This is important, that at laboratory or at site you must test, and testing is the only option. Fourth option for optimal concrete mix design is the total cementitious material contents should be as low as possible. So cementitious bonding material should be as low as possible to achieve required compressive strength at the required age. For example, an acceptable age of 42 to 56 days is commonly used in place of 28 days for mass concreting. So as cementitious material is quite low, so we increase that concrete strength days, required strength days at the age of 42 from 28 to we exceed that to 42 and 56 days. This will minimize the heat energy and maximize temperature after placement. So if you are using lower total cementitious material is quite low, then it will minimize heat energy and maximize temperature after placement. So one potential drawback of using concrete with the reduced cementitious content is that they may be more difficult to pump and place. So this is one important factor, that placement will be quite difficult because your components will get quite coarser. Fifth option we have is larger and better graded aggregates. So using larger aggregates and better quality aggregates reduce the amount of cementitious materials needed to achieve a particular strength. What are the benefits? The maximum size of the aggregate depend on the reinforcement bar spacing and cover depth cover. So these are the two essential specification which needs to be considered, and should be about 3/4 of the smaller of these to prevent honeycombing. So if the spacing is 1 inch, so that your concrete aggregate size should be 3/4 of the 1 inch. For thinner placement, other criteria may apply. So aggregates with maximum size of 1.5 inches are commonly available. So this is commonly available aggregate. So larger aggregates can be used, and better aggregates can be used. Sixth is particularly regarding type of aggregates, that limestone, granite or basalt should be used to reduce thermal expansion and potential for thermal cracking. So you can use aggregates, specific type of aggregates to control the thermal cracking. It is important to note that not all of these strategies may be cost effective because of the availability of the materials at the project site. So all these mechanisms which we have discussed regarding optimal concrete mix design, first one was low heat cement, and second one was use of additives like class F fly ash and slag cement as partial replacement, and reducing the water to cementitious material ratio, and to reducing the total cementitious material content, and using larger and well graded, better graded aggregates, and quality of the aggregate. So few mechanisms or few options can be cost effective, and few can be cost ineffective. In such instance, select the most cost effective mix design with low heat energy. To control the temperature difference or ultimate temperature, the second option we have is insulation. While it may seem counterintuitive to insulate mass concrete, because you have to liberate heat generated rather than insulating the heat, and insulation slows the escape of heat. This is the important, that slows the passage of heat which warms the concrete surface and reduces the temperature difference. So that insulation keeps on keeping the concrete surface warm, and it reduces the ultimate temperature difference between inner core and outer surface. So in placements with a minimum dimension greater than 5 feet, the use of insulation has virtually no effect on the maximum concrete temperature. So if your minimum dimension is greater than 5 feet, then this insulation process or procedure is less effective. Insulation with R values in range of 2 to 4 hours feet square per degree Fahrenheit British thermal unit is typically used to limit the temperature difference. So insulation with having R value this much is used to limit the temperature difference. In most cases, concrete insulating blankets are used. However, virtually any insulating material can often be acceptable. So insulating blankets is common practice, but any updated or having better performance insulating material can be used. To prevent thermal cracking, insulation should be kept in place until the hottest portion of the concrete cools within the temperature difference limit of the average air temperature. So how much should be the duration of insulation? So insulation should be kept until the hottest portion of the concrete cools within the temperature difference limit of the average air temperature. For example, if 45 degree Fahrenheit temperature difference is specified and average air temperature is 20 degree Fahrenheit and difference is 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and you can add them, and insulation should not be removed until hottest portion inner core of the concrete cools down to 65 degree Fahrenheit. So your this is average air temperature and this is your control. So 20 degree Fahrenheit plus 45 degrees Fahrenheit overall temperature for the inner core should be 65 degree Fahrenheit. When your hottest portion reaches to 65 degree Fahrenheit, then you can remove the insulation. This may require that insulation be kept in place up to several weeks, especially on thicker placement. So up to several weeks it is then it will be required that you provide insulation. During this time it may be possible to remove insulation temporarily to perform work. So you can remove temporary these insulation at cool temperatures, which can be done for a window of time when the temperature difference in the concrete is less than that of specified limit. So if temperature in the concrete is less, then you can temporarily remove the insulation. Okay, the third option regarding mass concreting control of temperature is concrete cooling before placement. The temperature of the delivered concrete is normally about 10 degree Fahrenheit warmer than average air temperature. So this is the common measure that concreting have 10 degree Fahrenheit is warmer than average air temperature, and to reduce this temperature, concrete can be pre-cooled prior to placement. So prior to placement you can pre-cool this concreting. As a rule of thumb, every 1 degree Fahrenheit of pre-cooling reduces the maximum temperature after placement by a similar amount. If you are pre-cooling 1 degree Fahrenheit, then it is directly proportional to the temperature after placement. So it will reduce the maximum temperature by similar amount. So what options you have regarding pre-cooling of the concrete before placement? Chilled water can be used for mixed water to pre-cool the concrete by about 5 degree Fahrenheit. 5 degree Fahrenheit temperature can be reduced using chilled water. Shaved or chipped ice can be substitute up to 75% of the mixed water. So if you are using chilled water, then you can use chipped water in combination, and it can be 75% replacement of the chilled water to reduce the concrete temperature up to 15 to 25 degrees centigrade. So only chilled water using that will use 5 degrees centigrade, and if you are using shaved and chipped ice in addition to chilled water, and that is 75% substitution, then that will reduce the temperature 15 to 25 degrees centigrade. In extreme pre-cooling, where extreme pre-cooling is needed, liquid nitrogen can be used to pre-cool the concrete mix by any amount to as low as 35 degrees centigrade. So with the help of liquid nitrogen, pre-cooling can be brought to 35 degree Fahrenheit as low. Liquid nitrogen cooling requires highly specialized equipment, and whatever requires a highly specialized equipment, and that is quite expensive, and to safely cool concrete and can be quite expensive. However, it is very good option for the contractor, as it can be done on job site at the ready mix plant. So for contractor, it is a good option that it can be done on the site and at the ready mix plant. So this is an option, that cooling before placement. And the cost of the different methods of pre-cooling depends on local conditions and willingness and experience of the concrete supplier. So this is very essential, that you have to be practical regarding your prior concreting cooling. Okay, this is an example of insulation, and you can see a bridge column uses surface insulation to minimize the temperature difference between interior and surface. Okay, this is liquid nitrogen and component, and liquid nitrogen cooling is sometimes used to reduce the temperature of the concrete prior to the time of placement. Third option regarding control of temperature, ultimate temperature, and temperature difference between inside of concrete and outer surface is concrete cooling after placement. After placement, there is not much that can be done to reduce the maximum temperature of the concrete. This is essentially important. After you have concreted, then you cannot do many tasks. Removing insulation only cools the surface, which increases the temperature difference and likelihood of thermal cracking. So if you are removing insulation, and then that will the temperature gradient will be quite larger, and that will be concrete will be susceptible to thermal cracking. To avoid artificially cooling the surface, moisture content curing methods should be used. So means you should avoid artificially cooling the surface. So moisture retention curing method should be used. Water curing, adding relatively cool water to the warm surface actually increases the likelihood of thermal cracking. If you're using water cooling and that is quite cool, then adding cool water on hotter surface will increase the thermal cracking. And using heated water for curing is typically not practical and is therefore not recommended. So heated water for curing is not practical and also not recommended. So using any type of moisture retention curing method is quite tough. So cooling pipes should be used inside your concrete member, and cooling the concrete member externally. This is form insulation, formwork, and this is insulation of the formwork. Okay, if installed prior to concrete placement, cooling pipes can be used to remove heat from the interior of the core. So this is an option, that curing with steam and curing cold curing is not possible. So cooling pipes can be used to remove heat from the interior of the concrete. This increases the cost of construction. Okay, but limits the maximum temperature and greatly reduces the time that insulation is required. This method of thermal control is sometimes used on larger projects where economical source of water is available, such as lake or river. So this cooling pipes mechanism can only be used where a greater quantity of water is available in dams construction, and that can be possible because a lot of water is used in cooling pipes. And cooling pipes typically consist of uniformly distributed array of 1-inch diameter plastic pipes embedded in the concrete. So there is a network and an array of 1-inch diameter plastic pipe within your mass concreting member, And pipe spacing of 2 to 4 feet on center is typical. So in the center 2 to 4 feet is typical. Use of smaller placements, larger section can be often be divided up to several smaller placements. So this is also another option, concrete cooling after placement, that use smaller placements. Placing the concrete of the thin foundation in multiple lifts with smaller thicknesses can sometimes be an effective method to minimize the potential for thermal problems. So this is another option, that use of smaller placement. However, the scheduled delay between lifts, cost and effort for thermal control of individual lifts and the horizontal joint preparation may offset the benefit. So if there is a scheduled delay and there is an additional cost coming up, and effort is required is quite more, so then that will be quite uneconomical use of smaller placement. Large slabs are sometimes placed as a series of smaller slabs using checkerboard pattern. So sometimes the larger slabs are placed in smaller slab using a checkerboard pattern. Even when placed in this pattern, the thickness of the slab is not reduced. So if you are placing even in this pattern, the thickness of the slab is not reduced, so maximum temperature and temperature difference is not reduced. So maximum temperature and temperature difference is also not reduced. Infill slabs are subjected to restraints on 5 sides and cannot expand. So 5 sides, 4 sides are from 4 sides, and last side is from bottom, and cannot expand with temperature rise of the concrete. Some of the expansion is absorbed by early age creep, and rest is absorbed by compressive stresses. So in periphery of the infill slab there can be early age creep, and rest is absorbed by compressive stresses. Upon cooling down, the portion of the expansion absorbed by the early age creep cannot be regained, which result in tensile stresses and increased likelihood of cracking. So that is infill slab, and there is expansion is absorbed by early age creep, then that cannot be reversed. So that will when the concrete cools down, it will contract, and there will be thermal stresses developed. To avoid this cracking, careful consideration should be given to slab dimensions by providing a uniform joint plan to reduce restraints and allow for slow and even cooling. So this is important, that joints should be proper, and to reducing the restraint and slowing and even cooling. So these are the mechanism to prevent this infill slab cracking. Okay, this was all about controlling the concrete temperature. So now it is predicting concrete temperatures. How we are going to predict the concrete temperature? A very simplistic way to estimate the temperature rise of structural concrete is to convert cementitious content, pound per cubic yard of concrete, to an equivalent cement content. So cementitious content need to be converted to cement content, then multiplied by 0.14. So then you multiply with that, and you will estimate the temperature rise. That will be the temperature rise. So this provides the temperature rise in degrees Fahrenheit. So with this formula, temperature rise is equal to cementitious content conversion into equivalent cement content, and multiply that with 14%. So that will result into temperature rise in degree Fahrenheit, not in degree centigrade. You should be aware about this thing, and is applicable to most placements with a minimum dimension greater than 6 feet of concretes containing type 1 or type 1/2 cement. So this formula is only applicable when your least dimension of the mass concrete member is greater than 6 feet. If that is less, then this formula is not applicable, or if you are using any other type of cement instead of type 2, type 1 and type 1/2, then this formula is not applicable. Thinner placements will have a somewhat lower temperature rise. So thinner temperature placement will have some lower temperature rise as compared to this formula. The following approximates the equivalent semen content. So what is the equivalent semen content? How you are going to equivalently equate the cementitious content with the semen content? So volumes are measured in pounds per cubic yard. So pounds per cubic yard, these are measured. 1 cubic yard of cement is counted as 1 cubic yard of cement. So that is cement is equal to cement. 1 cubic yard, 1 pound per cubic yard of class F fly ash is counted as 0.5 of the cement pound per cubic yard. 1 pound per cubic yard of the class C fly ash is counted as 0.80% of pound per cubic yard of cement, and slag cement is 50% replacement is counted as 0.90% pound per cubic yard of cement, and if that slag cement is 75% replacement of the cement, then is counted as 0.8 pound per cubic yard of cement. So this is the equivalent cement contents, and you have to multiply that with how many cubic yards of cement is there, or how many cubic yard of pound per cubic yard of fly ash is used, or those, multiply that with this factor, and multiply that ultimately with this factor, and you will get the temperature in degree Fahrenheit. Adding the temperature rise to the initial concrete temperature provides a prediction of the maximum concrete temperature. So that will provide adding the temperature rise to the initial concrete temperature. Initial concrete temperature you know, and the temperature rise you have calculated in this previous slide. So you add them and you will have the prediction model that how much will be the maximum concrete temperature. In most cases, the concrete is expected to be at or near its maximum temperature within 1 to 3 days after placement. So after 1 to 3 days, within 1 to 3 days, that will be achieved. Maximum temperature will be achieved. Depending on the minimum dimension, the concrete may not begin to cool for several additional days. So if your minimum dimension is quite large, greater than 6 feet, then that will depend on that it will take quite several days to cool. The time of insulation, the time that it will take to cool the concrete to within the temperature difference limit of the average air temperature can be estimated by assuming that the concrete will cool at the rate of 2 degree Fahrenheit to 6 degree Fahrenheit per day. Thinner placement cools faster than thicker. So if that is thicker than 2 degree Fahrenheit per day. So if how much time you are going to insulate the concrete formwork, concrete member, mass concrete member, then you can predict that assuming that 2 degree Fahrenheit there will be reduction per day. So you can predict a model. And for thicker section you can use 6 degree Fahrenheit per day. This provides a rough estimate because the actual cooling rate depends on insulation, the dimension of the placement, and host of other variables. So this is a rough estimate but still quite effective and well written formula. So this we have gone through that. This is your temperature in Fahrenheit. This is the days. Mix design for 10 foot thick slab. So 10 feet thick slab. Minimum dimension is modeled. You can see that these are equivalencies, and here you can see that 40 pound per cubic yard of equivalent cement, 50 pound per cubic yard equivalent cement content, 600 cubic. How much that greater the content, the greater the heat liberated, and it comes from that formula. So this is your predicting concrete temperatures. Alright, then monitoring concrete temperature, how we are going to monitor the temperature, and temperature monitoring should be performed to ensure that thermal control measures are keeping the temperature and temperature difference within the specified limits. So maximum temperature and temperature difference should be within the specified limit. How you are going to ensure? By temperature monitoring. Monitoring is also provides information so that additional insulation can be added to reduce the temperature difference if it is too high. So monitoring, with the help of monitoring, you can ultimately control the temperature difference. Commercially available systems such as IntelliRock or plastic shielded thermocouples with an appropriate logger can be used to monitor concrete temperatures. At a minimum, concrete temperature should be monitored at the hottest location in the placement, typically the geometric center and center of the nearby exterior surface. So one placement should be in sensor placement should be in the hottest area of the concreting, at the center or geometric center and centroid, and second should be near the surface at the depth of 2 to 3 inch below the surface, 2 to 3 inch below the surface. So this is your placement temperature sensor placement, 2 to 3 inch below the surface it should be. And these are the plans of the bridge pier, and you can see that deck at the surface it is placed, and in the center at the surface, and near the center, and at the surface and near the center. And this is the plan, and this is your section view. Here you can see that in post tensioned girders it can be used at here and near the few inches below the top surface and at the center. And here see, you can see that 5 inches below, and it is how much sensor's position. Summary. Generally the concrete mix design is the most effective way to minimize the impact of heat in mass concreting. So this is the most essential, that concrete you should be focusing on concrete mix design rather than going for other procedures. Cooperations between designer, specifier and contractor on mix design, insulation and cooling is the key to building durable structures successfully with mass concreting. So mass concreting needs a collaborative type of approach, so there should be cooperation between designer, specifier and contractor. So with the use of BIM technology, this mass concreting phenomena can be quite easily achieved. And additional information can be found on massconcretehelp.com and Portland Cement Association's website. So a lot of data can be found from this website, and that's it for today. And that lecture was quite interesting regarding mass concreting, and it's all about mass concreting, which we have studied the most essential components of the mass concreting, and how mass concreting, what is mass concreting, the basics of mass concreting, and specifications and thermal controls and optimal. We went through different options regarding control of the temperature, and we studied predicting concrete temperatures and monitoring. So monitoring and control was essential. So all the components of project management were included, that proper initiation, planning, monitoring and control, and project closure. So that's it for today, and in upcoming lecture we will be studying some more interesting topics. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.